As dark days go in the FAI's history, this is right up there with the darkest of them.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's just hard to take in many ways, although Paul Cook had kind of set the scene for us, and so it's not drop-dead shock. We were expecting it, and it's still very tough, though, when it comes out, and you scratch your head and wonder, how did it all get to that?
I guess for football fans out there who want to take their game back and who want to know that sometime in the future the very existence of the organisation who is charged with growing and managing and developing the sport here isn't going to be threatened, in a way, is there any way of spinning this around and actually thinking, okay, well, this is finally as bad as it's ever going to be, and from this point forward, because everybody knows now how bad it has been and the fact that it was allowed to get there, that surely there's an opportunity here for us to say, okay, no more.
Yeah, I think it's probably right to start thinking about the future now, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of fallout, and the broom has to come now and clear out anybody associated with that performance. But I do believe it's about looking forward, and really I think given the grave state of finances, of the I suppose even the culture of the game now in the country, given what's happened, I think there's one big relationship that has to be mended as fast as we can and brought into a different, new, coveted place, and that would be football in this country's relationship with the government, and how somehow is it possible to get the trust from government to come in and help the game, in its darkest hour, in its time when there's never been a need like it. And I've been saying for many months now that the importance of football in this country is not reflected in the monetary assistance it is given by government. I believe it's the people's game. I'm down in Limerick today, and I'm speaking to people. People are stopping me who love soccer, who've played from under sixes, and whose kids now are playing the whole way through. Everybody's worried. Everybody wants to see a better time. I think government, really are the key to this, but I can't blame the government. And these reports show you why government were correct not to make, a better effort with football. But to get to that point, how do we clear everything out, start again, bring dynamic play, into the governance and the running of the FAI that the government will be proud of, and that the Exchequer can turn around and release funds to make the game, I suppose, brilliant in this country again. Our facilities have gone to pot. Our league was mistreated for many years by the association. And all in all, if your elite game at the top is floundering at best, or is downright ignored for the benefit of a few and around a lovely table in the marble halls of power, where it's led to, surely, if football can prove itself again to the government that it is the people's game, then I would hope that trust could come about an amazing turnaround, and it doesn't have to take a long time. The right people in there, dynamic approaches, and not what the governance review group threw at us there, where 4 volunteers will come in and change everything and add to the 8 people that would be in there. I really believe it's time for a root and branch change. I'm not saying there's anybody, they're all bad and there. Some new people have come into play. I'm not saying that, but it's the whole approach of an association, that isn't necessarily there to make profit. It's there to be brilliant for the game of football and to make us all love and cherish the game even more. If we could bring people like that into play, could we then, in football, ring up if we wanted to build a new stand like the Curragh did and ask for 58 million, or Parky Queeve, the way the GAA lads were running there, over the allotted amount, and no problem, take another chunk of millions. That confidence that government has, or that relationship that government has with other sports. Greyhound Racing, for instance, 16.8 million this year. Lovely letter from their chief thanking the government for believing in them. Why can't we build ourselves or believe in ourselves that we can get to that point where government can do the same things and make football brilliant in this country? The great thing about today is it leaves that question in the air, and if both sides can come good on that, then I would see today as a real turning point in Irish soccer history.
There's two parts to that I just wanted to talk about really and tease out. The board are obviously going to be hugely important in setting down what that vision is and inspiring people. But then you've got the rank and file staff who are absolutely devastated, I'm sure, today by what they've seen, the excess in spending, the fact that accounts that were presented 2 years ago have now had to be completely revised, where what looked like a very profitable year is then going to end up being a year with significant losses in the multiples of millions. So over 2.5 million losses were reported now from a situation where over 2.5 million profit was being recorded and trumpeted. You can see how anybody who's involved in the sport as a volunteer coach or as a regional development officer or somebody working in Abbottstown going into work every day, their morale is going to be low. It's going to be very difficult for them to be part of a turnaround without somebody or without a group of people coming out and going, no, it's okay, we've got this now, that's the past, and our vision is whatever that vision is that everybody can buy in, feel like they share a part of.
Yeah, and it would be great if government, put real stability in place by saying that they would support I suppose, a period of time whereby no redundancies will be made and people could feel safe, particularly coming into Christmas. I mean, I know plenty of people working in the FAI, and you're so right. It's a dreadful time for them. They love the game, they cherish the game, they work hard. And to think that they were, treated the way they were and that their livelihoods were treated as frugally as they were by the powers that be at the top, some sort of response from government on this, that these people, it could be safe in their jobs for a period of time till there's a turnaround, and till government are happy that there's a growth pattern that they could start to achieve in terms of employing more people and having more coaches on the ground and getting football into a better place. It's not pie in the sky dreaming for me. I think it's almost football getting paid back outside of the old association by a government that are kind of happy to be part of any success that Irish football has brought, and are happy to be seen, individuals over the years that are happy to be seen associated with football success, be it at a local level or international level. That a little bit of payback now, and in its darkest hour, I think the ones that are most at risk and the ones that you'd have most thought for are the employees. But we could go into a whole new sort of chapter there with the looking back at the culture of fear that was in there. I spoke about it when Minister Ross had a stakeholders get together in the Mansion House some months ago, and I brought up that very point, Ger, that these people who are I suppose tasked with going in every day and being the association's sort of bloodlines and being their messengers to the people, if they weren't enjoying it, if they're in a tough place, how can the game develop at all? And I think a strategy in there that puts the people on the ground working with footballers, with young girls, with young boys, with senior players, senior women, that whole structure to be handled by people at FAI who can go into work every day with a bounce in their step, knowing that the leaders there were supporting them. They were doing it for those workers. They were doing it for the jobs that they can do, the rollout of it in the country. And can government support that now? Can government believe can government believe that now is the time to intervene, especially to create a situation where there's better days ahead, to put today's day down as a marker of our last day of shame? It's all about growth going forward. I really think, the association, I believe it has to be rebranded. I've said it for months now. I didn't have to wait for these reports to come out or the accounts to come out or anything else that's going to say. And if that could be possible, just like the Olympic Council, then who knows, we could get it into shape quickly. But, I've kind of gone through so much emotion like most people. There was anger way back, March time, April, May. I thought, okay, there's a way out of this. The governance review group are going to get us into a great place. I wasn't happy, and nobody was. I don't think outside of the stakeholders themselves that the governance review group didn't go far enough, went nowhere near it, in my opinion. And now I've gone, you kind of get anger. Today it was shock. And now I'm saying, the quicker we all get ourselves into, let's think forward momentum here. Let's think of the future, and let's see, can government be the first person who have got so much, prominence in terms of, I suppose, space on the front pages of the papers and the editorials here from the misfortunes of football, can they be the ones to show some leadership now, 6 months ahead of an election, that football matters and it's big on manifestos and big on priorities when it comes to seeking the votes of the very people who need them most now.
One last question. You mentioned there the 4 independent directors. We're putting a lot of store in those 4 independent directors to be able to come in and be the transformative, messianic figures almost that are going to save football. It's asking too much of 4 individuals, essentially, when, as you say, this has to be proper root and branch. A rebrand even might help to go some way to change that.
Well, I tell you, give me any business or organisation in the world that's in the trouble that it's in now that brings in 4 volunteers to make it truly brilliant international commercial entity that can fulfil all of its obligations. It is way too much to even ask of the 4 people coming in. I said that from the day it was announced, the day that the 8 seats that would stay within the game, and that 4 new people would come in to make things work. 4 people could come in doing 60, 80 hours a week work each, but ask them to come in on a part-time basis and defeat that culture that exists in the FAI that's there, laid bare in figures today, but we all know is there, almost in physicality, you could say, the way this thing was run. It's a huge lot to ask, and maybe sending 4 people in right now to see how they can turn it upside down and give them the power away from just being 4 of 12, then it may have a chance. But I just think it's a real tough task, particularly when they're looking for volunteers to do this and they're not there in a full-time capacity.
One last thing then, obviously we heard that 3 were stepping away this week. The brand has become somewhat toxic, but again, there is a hope that there are companies out there who appreciate the fact that the football team are, as you said, the nation's team. Like, there's no team that we have that generates as much support, as much debate as the senior international football team. And if they were to be able to qualify for a tournament where there were games in Ireland, then you would hope that there are brands out there who are like, I actually do want to be part of that. I do want to be part of the rebirth and regeneration of football in this country.
Well, that's right, and I think that's the starting point right there. That hopefully there are other brands who will see that there's no association with the past, that this is all about going forward. And I would point, I think there was a car manufacturer who got in recent times as car sponsors, if I'm right there. So so there are people looking at opportunities because they know how big this is, and I'm disappointed, of course, as everyone is. 3, it looked a fabulous fit for everybody for so long, but it may represent opportunity. And again, I point back, with the right commercial sort of office in play, and with the dynamic, I suppose, modern way an organisation could be run. The first thing I'd have a brilliant commercial person knocking on every multinational's door who enjoys tax breaks in this country and say, if you really want to help this country in your, I suppose, in your role here and what you do here and the tax you pay, look at the people's game, look at football, and can we bring a contract together that the people would buy into, that your company would get great kudos for and great benefit from, and it would be the driving force to really start to regenerate the game. We don't have the expertise within the association to even knock on that door. Never mind come up with the commercial plan. But I am sort of hopeful in one way that we have dynamic people out there who could be talked into being part of something new, something rebranded, something that could really stir and shake the business world to coming in and supporting, what is, I'll revert to it again, the people's game, and the one that gives us the most satisfaction, and particularly, as you say, when international events come along, when big games come, and when we qualify for tournaments. I mean, that's what sort of sets the whole thing away from the top. But we must always remember that the stuff right through the sort of pyramid is just as important. And ladies' football is coming into such prominence. These are all things that multinationals love. The equality, making sure that the girls get as much money as the boys. There's so many things here that aren't even looked at from what's in place now. But I am confident that there are young people out there. There are great people coming into football. I think the Shamrock Rovers CEO is a brilliant, bright guy. Brendan, there's Shelburne. There's young people coming into the game now at a level I think there's loads of room for that. If we can build an association that makes room for brilliant, bright young people to bring the old school away from the major decision making. Yeah, great to have grey hair helping you with that. But I do believe there's a new world ahead. I think it should be younger people running it, who are doing it in a more educated way, and it leads to everything like coaches, being better prepared to be employed in this country. The whole game could be lit up. It really could, I think, with a rebrand, with an input of great commercial brilliance, passion, emotion, ambition, but honesty. Above all, honesty. And I think if one thing comes out of today, it's that football really has to be so visible in this country now. It cannot hide behind the cloak and dagger approach that brought it to its knees. It's time for a new beginning.